So I wanted to just do a quick run through of what you might want to do in terms of your assignment, because I've had a few questions from people. So what I've done is I've sort of just broken it down into each of the different criteria and just giving you some tips of what you can do for each of those bits of criteria in your assignment too. So for the P5 and P6 that you're working on, what you need to do for those then is for each of the body systems, that's the body systems here highlighted down at this point here, each of those body systems then you need to describe a disorder, and then you need to describe the care for that particular disorder. So that's for the P5, P6, a disorder for each body system, so describe a disorder for each body system, and then describe the care for that disorder. So in terms of the care, then these are the things that you're going to be looking at. So monitoring and support of disorder by professionals. So you could think about maybe what tests are carried out. Nurses tend to carry out the tests. Have they been advised to use any kind of aid? So it might be that they might want to use a walking stick or a wheelchair or something for the time being. Have they been prescribed some kind of medication for that particular disorder? Have they been given any support on how they actually are going to go about giving themselves that particular medication? And then there's the self-monitoring side of things. So that's the things that the patient themselves will do, like tests. So somebody who's diabetic might want to take their blood glucose. They might need to change their diet, for instance. So there'll be lifestyle changes. They might have to give themselves insulin injections. That'll be self-administration of medication. They might want to make sure that they've got an appropriate environment for particular disorders. For the merit then, so this is for the M3, just for 3 of the disorders, you need to explain in detail the effect on the body of those disorders. So you're not just saying about the, what is the disorder, but you're saying what symptoms have they got, what impact does it have on the body and how that body system works in particular. So that's for the M3. For the M4 then, we're going to focus on diabetes. So we've chosen diabetes. You can choose a different one if you want to, but I think it's good if we pick the same one. So for that one then, we're going to just look in a bit more detail. We're going to look at the impact of the care given. So you will have already highlighted the care given for the PASS criteria. So for the P5, P6 criteria, and you talked about the care. So what I think would be a really good idea in terms of the structure is for each of those provisions, so each type of care, you would then state the effect of that type of care or the impact of that type of care in terms of pies. So for instance, if they go to see a dietitian, then you could think of the physical effects of that. So they would have a much healthier diet and they would be less likely to have a high or a low blood glucose concentration. The intellectual, then they would know how to actually monitor their diet. The emotional effects, then they would feel a lot more confident in themselves about how they can eat in order to help to regulate their diet. And because they're feeling better in themselves, because they're not getting really high or very low blood sugars, then they're going to be able to play a bigger part in society. So they'll be able to go out on social occasions, maybe eat out with friends and family and that kind of thing. Anyway, so for each of the different types of care that might be provided for somebody with diabetes, then you can think of the pies for that. And in terms of the pies, then they want you to look at the positive and the negative effects for each of those. So they want the positive and the negative effects. So we've got some things here that you could look at. So we're looking at this one here. So eating healthily, physical, eating healthily, taking medication and regular exercising can help control diabetes. Diabetics then less thirsty, less irritable, less tired. For the physical benefits, emotional benefits and better engagement with others, more social events, and ability to do leisure activities. Negative effects of care then, some types of treatment can be very time consuming. So for instance, with diabetes, some people that are diabetic will need to undergo regular renal dialysis. So they'll be on dialysis for maybe 4 hours a week. It's very time consuming. There might be side effects for things that they have taken. They might not like the idea of having to inject themselves regularly with insulin. So there are various negative effects then that you can look at as well. For the distinction criteria then, and again for somebody with diabetes, you can recommend some sort of care and explain why that care would be particularly good. So you can use the case study again for this one. You can use the case study for M4 and for the D2. So the case study is up on Moodle if you're not sure where that one is. So recommend care and then explain why that particular care is going to be good for those individuals. Finally then, for the P7, you need to record your heart rate 3 times and then compare those to norm values. So we did start to do this a few weeks ago. You found your heart rate. You can, if you've got some kind of Fitbit, you can use a Fitbit if you want to record your heart rate 3 times. Whichever way you do it doesn't really matter, but as long as you've got a record of that and then you've done a little bit of a comparison, so compared it to the norm values that we talked about in the other lesson, you can add that then to the end of your assignment. So you can pop it at the end of the assignment, or as some people have already done, you can email me the sheet that I gave out in that lesson where we first did our heart rate. Good. If you have got any questions about this, I will be on the chat from 1 o'clock today, so 1 till 2:30 today, and you can ask me questions on the Teams chat. Okay, so do get onto Teams and get started with that. I will be up on Teams during our lesson times this week and next week, and then following on after that. Okay, good. Take care. Bye.